so bad that the police could not even wedge the door open.
Right.
So they said, well, we'll go check around at the patio door. So they went to look there, and there was nobody there at all. But when the policemen saw my friend, they remembered that they had been there once before, but they had never been able to find anybody at the house.
Uh-huh.
So my friend said, okay, you can leave. You know, it'll be okay now. We never hear this more than once a night. So I said, what do you mean? You never hear this more than once a night? Well, it seems that the original owner that had the house
Yes.
had hung herself in the kitchen.
This is like the third or the fourth suicide. It seems like suicides, for some reason, are more likely to remain than others. That should be telling. That's a strong message, I think. So she had hung herself.
She hung herself in the kitchen, and her husband he traveled a lot, or he went hunting like our husbands did. He was not home an awful lot.
Yes.
But when he got home that night, he tried to get into the house, and it was all bolted on the inside. And he went around to the patio doors and looked into the kitchen, and he could see that she was hung, that she was dead, hanging. So he shot himself in the backyard that night.
Oh, my God.
And that's what we think the pounding on the door was his ghost trying to get in to help her.
All right. I really appreciate your story. Thank you. And there's so many aspects of that I think are right on the money. The fact that there already tonight, how many have we heard that were suicides? So that must mean there's a greater chance. It must mean there's a greater chance for suicides to remain or be forced to remain. We don't know the nature of the other side, or even that represents the other side. It may be a kind of a hellish place where people who do that kind of thing, commit suicide, remain. I don't know. And the other, of course, is that things continue to repeat. It may well be that the hell you enter when you do something like that is that you are then forced to repeat for eternity. I'll put a question mark there. That act that got you there. Night after night after night. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. What is your...
Tom.
Tom, okay. Where are you, Tom?
I'm from Chicago.
Okay.
This happened approximately about 11 years ago.
Yes, Tom.
It's around 3 in the morning. I was coming home from a party with a friend. We're driving down Roberts Road, and I know you're thinking Resurrection Mary, but this has nothing to do with Resurrection Mary.
Okay.
There's somebody standing by the curb with a lantern, and he got in front of the car, and we slowed down. He walked towards the car. We looked. It was February. He had like one of his arms was out, like a bandage was hanging, and it was like stained. It looked like maybe blood, whatever. This was like really gruesome looking. His mouth was agape. His eyes were like rolled in back of his head. His leg was missing.
Oh,
and you could see like a translucency through him. We just looked at each other and just like, whoa. We drove on. He walked in back of the car, and the other car, we looked in back, and the other car just went right through him.
Went right through him?
Went right through him.
And I'm sorry, who was with you? Who saw it?
A friend. We were in a car.
And you both saw it?
We both saw it, and he was right by the side of us. We drove, and then he continued to walk across the street, and there was another cemetery. It was Bethany. He was walking to the other cemetery, and there was another car in back that drove right through this apparition. I mean, it blew me away. I was like, for like a year, I'm telling you.
So there's no doubt in your mind then about about ghosts, right?
Oh no, I have so many paranormal experiences, but that was probably the most spooked out one I've ever had.
Of course. I mean, when you see that with your own eyes, and
I had a witness too.
And then another set of eyes sees it.
And then we called Justice Police, and they didn't want to, get into it. And then I called Richard Crow.
Well, can you blame them?
Of course.
They want bodies.
Of course.
Yeah, they want bodies. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You look like an angel. Walk like an angel.
Yeah, a lot of angelic ones that seem angelic when you meet them. Well, they turn out to not be quite angels.
You're the devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are.
We'll be right back. This is Ghost to Ghost 2003.
This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Network.
Ghost to Ghost AM, actually. I am Art Bell, and we may expand this program to 5 hours tonight. I'm beginning to like your stories a lot. You're doing very well. So that's all we're doing tonight, by the way. We're telling ghost stories. They're your stories. No official guest, just all of you. And in just a very short moment, we'll get back to it. Mike in San Diego, Fast Blast Art. Time supposedly does not exist in the spirit world. So what the heck does the word eternity mean to a ghost? So if a person goes to hell for eternity, then what would that mean to a spirit that has gone to hell for committing suicide? I don't know, Mike. I just know what I'm hearing, and as you listen to these stories, an awful lot of them involve suicides. And time, well, it may mean nothing, but how could you have a punishment for eternity without realization and understanding that you're in this for eternity? West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello. What is your first name?
I'm Elizabeth, and I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona.
All right, Elizabeth.
And, before I forget to tell you, if you're ever in Phoenix, there's a haunted restaurant you may be interested in. They have good food and about 20 ghosts.
Good food and 20 ghosts?
At least.
All right.
But anyway, I've also had numerous ghost encounters ever since I was about 6 years old. I go on record now, I don't like them. But the one I'm going to tell you about involves my late brother.
All right.
And before he died, he lived in northern Arizona, and I'm down here in Phoenix, of course, and he had been going through some marital problems. And my mama lived with me at the time, too, me and my baby, and he had asked, could he move back in with us while he got a divorce? And, of course, I said, yes, of course, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him, I want to be with you when you pack your things. Something just told me I needed to be there.
Yes.
And he had promised, at the time he was driving for a trucking firm, and he had promised he would come get me, and, I just wanted to be there. I wanted to watch his back, basically.
Okay. All right.
Well, on August 5, 1995, I had worked night shift, and, so I didn't get to bed till like about 5 o'clock that morning. And at about 11:20,
You've got your radio on, don't you?
It's in the other room.
Yes, you shouldn't have a radio on. It's very confusing. But go ahead. You woke up.
Yeah, well, I just woke up. I had a most god-awful, horrible, sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I had such a blinding pain. I mean, a very hot, burning pain in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had migraines before, and this was not like any migraine, and it lasted for several minutes. And I just knew that something was wrong, that something awful was happening, but I didn't know what. And then about 3 hours later, I got the news that my brother had been shot.
So that was it. You knew, in other words, you knew?
I just knew something
had to happen.
I knew something awful was happening. Well, I went up to the hospital where he was at. Like I said, it was a 4-hour drive, and that'll make sense to you in a minute. And he had left a living will, and I was with him when they disconnected the life support. They couldn't get me out of the room.
He was brain dead.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be there, to watch his body die. I just couldn't face that.
I understand.
And then finally on August 8th, I got the news that he had died, and it was like I got the news at 7:15. They said he had died at 7:05.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my mom and I were just totally devastated. And I managed to get her to bed in her room, and then I went to bed in my room, and I was just in my room, and I was just, crying my heart out.
Yes.
And I thought my mom had gone to sleep also, so I wasn't even thinking anything. But then at 11:05, exactly 4 hours after he was pronounced dead, I heard the kitchen door open, and I heard it slam shut. And I heard my brother call out, "Mom, Beth, I'm home."
Huh.
And I remember looking up because, my clock was right there by my bed, and I'm like, that's wishful thinking. It's just wishful thinking. And I literally cried until I cried myself to sleep. And the next morning, I went in to check on my mom, and she had been awake all night just crying and crying. And I was just trying to comfort her. And then she said, "Beth, last night, I heard the kitchen door open, and I heard it slam, and I heard Lonnie call out, 'Mom, Beth, I'm home.'"
Huh.
And I said, "What time was that?" And she said, "I looked at my clock. It was 11:05.
Well, gee, what can I say? I guess he did come home one more time, huh?
Yeah, he did.
All right. Thank you very, very much. Maybe until you realize you are dead, you do something regular. I don't know. I mean, if you're able to in the next life, maybe you do that. Maybe you go home. Maybe you go to work. Maybe you keep headed toward, if you were on the way to somewhere and had a car accident, maybe your body just keeps going toward its goal. You shake it off, and even though you're dead, you just keep going to do the next thing you were going to do until, of course, you realize. You're on the air, Ghost to Ghost AM. Hi.
Hello, Art.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm fine. What is your first name?
It's Steve.
Okay.
I'm calling from Vista, California.
All right, Steve.
And this is a pretty scary one.
Good. That's what I'm looking for. Go right ahead.
I have a friend. She's from Tijuana, Mexico. It happened, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. This happened in her neighborhood, and, I don't like telling this, but I almost have an obligation. There was a neighborhood party, kids about 20 years old and up.
Sure.
And, they do what typical Mexicans do there, listen to music, eat, drink beer. And one of the people at the party brought out a Ouija board, and I'll refer to it as a Ouija. That's what they call it. And they started playing. There was probably, I think she said 15 people there.
Yes.
And they're all from the same neighborhood. So they were playing it, and people were asking questions, pretty neutral questions. And there was one guy who was pretty machismo. Maybe he had too many drinks. I don't know. He started calling this Ouija out. He was, I won't use the word, but he was saying, "F you, Ouija."
Mm-hmm.
Ouija is a mentiroso, which is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is not wise.
No, it's not.
I'm not even Mexican, and I don't, but I know that. That's not smart.
Yes, it's not smart. And so this went on, and he kept doing this, and he wanted to be confrontational with this thing.
Yeah.
And he's, they said, "Okay, that's enough. Let's put this away." And he goes, "No, I insist. I want to play. Yo quiero jugar. I want to play."
Yes.
So he started playing, and he asked the neutral questions at first. And he would respond by saying, "You're a liar," or, cuss it out again.
Yes.
And he asked a question I don't think he should have asked. He asked the Ouija, "Do you know when I'm going to die?"
Uh-huh.
And it was matter of fact. It spelled out claro que sí, which is of course. And he called it a liar again.
Yeah?
And he said, "Okay, if you know, you liar," he called it.
Uh-huh.
When? And the Ouija spelled out in esta noche.